Hello, every peoples, and greetings and all that good stuff. I'm your cult of personality, ToonKriticY2K is the name, Toon's the name of my game, and welcome to the first episode of the Sketchpad, a little interview show where I interview fellow Bronies and Pegasisters about what they do best. And I'm starting it off with one of my greatest friends. Friends? Wow, okay, maybe I should go back to dictionary school.
Oh,
What's your face?
what's my face?
Yes, the orange Pegasi pony thing.
Goldenfox.
Okay, good. Goldenfox. There you are. Now I remember you. There's only one like you, so. Yes, Goldenfox. Great to have you. You're like one of the closest friends that I've had since I've started being the Toon Critic, so I figured it'd be appropriate to start here.
Of course. Glad to be here.
All right. What hobbies do you have outside of what you usually do as like a reviewer?
For the most part, I like playing video games, playing guitar, and I don't know. I've kind of lost track of that. But those were the two other things that I like doing outside of my reviewing criteria.
All right. Are your parents all right with you, like being a brony?
Yeah, actually, I do have a bit of a brief history of that. I used to be a closet brony for a little over a year until my parents found out about it, or I had to tell them about it, and they didn't seem to mind it.
They didn't like question you and say, "Oh, why are you hanging around with like a bunch of pedophiles and all that?"
No, they never even thought of it that way.
Okay, good. Pray they never do, because then you wouldn't be here right now.
Yeah, God forbid.
What got you into reviewing, and how long have you been doing it?
As a general whole, or
Let's go with the general whole. Go all the way back, because I know you weren't a Pegasi. You obviously weren't a pony. You did stuff before this.
yes, I used to review movies. I felt motivated to reviewing movies, mostly thanks to the influence of Doug Walker, but also from Roger Ebert and James Roll from Cinemassacre.com.
The Angry Video Game Nerd?
Yeah, him. He had a small section of reviewing movies, and he was a little more speculative than more just critiquing, but
Right.
he's more level-headed compared to one who's emotionally responsive and one who's just more critical. And yes, I do think those are two different terms.
I do too.
Yeah, at the same time, I used to major in computer animation, and since I was a fan of animation since I was somewhere down that area, I figured it'd be convenient that I would kind of talk about these things. So that's kind of where I started from, and then things changed over time. So, yeah.
That's a good start. How did you become a brony, and how long have you been one?
A little over 3 years ago, I stumbled upon a silly video called Pony Crap 2, which was a fan-made music video, or AMV is what they call them, or PMV, whatever abbreviation you want to choose from. And
MV, as we know.
yes. What's an MV?
It's if you get a P, then you're a very special person if you put them together. I don't know.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a silly PMV where they just have footage from the show with the audio ripped out of the trailer for StarCraft 2. And I looked at it, and it was just really, really weird that they would use something so adorable over something so epic. I stumbled upon a couple of other videos that had a similar idea that used footage from the show but did something silly at the time. Originally, I thought they were just YouTube poops, thinking that the show just gained another bad reputation, but then I discovered people were very positive with it. So, as curiosity, I looked it up on IMDb, and at the time, I thought it had like a 9 out of 10 or something like that. It had a really high rating. So, out of curiosity, I watched the first 2 episodes of the entire series, and normally I was just going to give it maybe a few minutes and then shut it off, but as I was watching it, I found myself finishing the first 2 episodes that very night, and I was just completely, shocked that I was enjoying something that wasn't targeted for me. So, over the past 2 weeks or so, I was on a marathon of watching pretty much the first season. Then I made a short video explaining my feelings on the matter, and from that point on, my channel was dedicated more towards the show. And the rest was history.
Yeah, as we can see. So when did you make the decision to become a Brony reviewer and create your Pony Sona?
It was a bit of a slow transition throughout early 2012. Back then I used to do movie reviews. I wanted to make sure I would stick with that and hope that I wouldn't completely drift off. However, more people were interested in the show itself, so periodically I started doing some occasional episode reviews until finally at the end of season 2. Then I had a friend of mine who goes by the name of Sir Pony Lancelot who did vectors for Paleo, and then he started doing some for me. And from that point on, I started to use my OC Pony for making reviews. So eventually I started doing reviews of all of Season 3, and the rest was history. So for the most part, it was just a slow transition in 2012, roughly.
I think around that time is when I started to transition too.
Yeah.
Has becoming a Brony made your work stronger?
Actually, yes, because when I used to do movie reviews and such, most of my videos were just sharing footages from the trailers, and that's basically about it. With reviewing episodes, there was a lot more editing involved. There was a lot more of cropping out and working with different things and working with different kinds of software in terms of how I present my reviews, and that's just one of those things I love to do sometimes, provided I used to get involved with some computer animation or graphic design.
Do you consider yourself a reviewer or an analyst?
Reviewer. To me, the term analyst, which many people think it's a cool term for either reviewing or whatnot, to me, being an analyst is being more observational and speculative over the show, whereas being a reviewer is more of critiquing and judging the show for what it is and offering criticism in the hopes that the creators and the staff can improve themselves.
It makes sense. I've always considered myself a slight mix of both, because if you can... Oh, wow, you know what? I was almost about to compare that to sexuality. I'm not going to. I'm a little better than that. Never mind. I mean, if you're like a mix of reviewer and analyst, it's the best of both worlds, but no. Forget I said that. Zach, edit that out later. Just forget you said that. What has been your favorite collaboration you've done?
Ooh, there's been a pretty good number of them. I would pretty much have to say Pinky Pride because of how comedically well-timed it is.
Totally
and
not because you're biased, just because you're doing an interview with me, right?
No. It's mainly because of just how I managed to work with the comedic jokes from the live-action segment, thanks to Nikki V, to staying informative with the episode itself and implying what it was that made the episode good. And that's, to me, it's kind of difficult to juggle off.
Right.
And make things work. There have been other collaborative efforts that I've done that did involve some entertainment value while staying informative, but it didn't seem to pop out to me personally as Pinky Pride did, the review that is.
What's your favorite piece of fan work that someone has made for you? Or selection of pieces, I should say.
Holy crap. There's been quite a lot.
Just shout out some random people.
If I were to give a shout out to some fan artists out there, sorry if I didn't mention some of you, but I do like to give a shout out to Cat Avenger because she's done a lot of pictures of my OC. Megaphoric, who for the most part is well known for doing some good music. She also did some fan art, and she did a fan art of my picture last year when I designed her a YouTube header. It was a bit of an art trade, so to speak. Who else? Because there's quite a lot of fan artists out there, and sorry if I don't mention you. Basically, you guys are all awesome.
Exactly. He loves you all equally. Goldenfox is confirmed for Brony Jesus. What is your favorite and least favorite season and episode of MLP?
In terms of seasons, my least favorite would be season 3, but I'm not as heavily biased with it as some people are.
Right.
My favorite season is season 2, which even though it doesn't have a story arc like what season 4 has, it allowed a ton of character development. Going by individual seasons, what my favorite episodes are, I think that's what you were asking me.
Yeah.
For season 1 is The Cutie Mark Chronicles. Season 2, Hurricane Fluttershy. Season 3, Wonderbolts Academy. And for Season 4, spoiler alert, Pinkie Pride.
Oh. And you said before that Hurricane Fluttershy is your all-time favorite episode.
Yes, it still remains as my favorite episode of the series.
That's good. I should look more into that episode. I mean, I've only seen it like 1 or 2 times.
Ah.
How would you explain the fandom to someone that's never even heard of the show or fandom?
I'll tell you this much. I did try to explain it to somebody who wasn't aware of the show, and it did not go very well. So,
Did you end up like not becoming friends because of it?
No, it wasn't because of that. I just made a poor choice of words.
It's about guys that like ponies and stuff. I think that's where normally people would stop.
Yeah, because provided that the show is about candy-colored equines, it's very hard to explain it to anybody who's not adapted to that kind of thinking pattern.
If you said candy-colored equines to me and I'm not a brony, I would be very confused. Who do you really want to meet in this fandom face to face? Like, if you go to a convention, like, who do you really want to meet? Besides me, but that...
There's been quite a lot of people I have met over time, including a couple of voice actresses from the show. Like, I met Tara Strong. I met AC Racebest. I met Paleo, Saberspark. I believe, who else? Joe Stevens from EQI, or I think it's what it was called. Equestrian Inquirer. So there's a lot that I've met. If there is anybody else who I would have loved to have met, it would have to be, what's his name? Silver Quill. I would love to meet him in person, shake his hand, tell him, a great job in your reviews and how comedically well-timed your reviews are.
What pony resembles you out of the main 6? Like, if you had to pick just one.
It's a bit weird for me to pick this one, but I would say Fluttershy because aside from the whole shyness, which I don't really have much of, I do have a bit of emotional problems, admittedly, and that's kind of what Fluttershy has. Relatively, there have been some situations where I get so hyperactive like Pinkie Pie, or I get so obsessively artistic like what Rarity does, and so on and so forth within many of the main 6. But I just think that Fluttershy comes to me the most.
That's interesting. I've almost always pictured you as like a Fluttershy-like character. Now I know who to ship you with. What? Have you ever... Well, obviously you've been to a few cons, but what would your con experience... Wow, okay, hang on. I'm going to start over that question. Okay. You've obviously been to like 1 or 2 conventions.
Yeah, as far as pony conventions go, I've only been to one, and that was Equestria LA.
What was it like going to your very first convention then?
In general, or a pony convention?
Well, pony convention.
For a pony convention, it was very, very exciting and very ecstatic of me to attend to a pony convention because outside of that convention, there's hardly anybody else I met in reality who are bronies. So to actually get acquainted and meet up with people who are also bronies is a whole different feel of, being accepted or being welcomed. And just the whole place is just so energetic in that we would just periodically there were people out there who were singing random songs from the show, like they would sing Smile, Smile, Smile or Winter Wrap Up.
Or Pink Fluffy Unicorns Dancing on Rainbows. I hate that song so much. Please don't sing it at BronyCon. What?
That song is freaking annoying.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm surprised that some people would sing that song because I didn't hear that song ever when I was at Equestria LA.
Maybe it wasn't debuting around that time.
That could be.
Name your favorites and least favorites with the following: music, anime, TV shows, and video games. Just favorite and least favorite.
Okay, so what was the first one?
Music.
Music. My favorite kind of music is, do you mean by genre, musicians, or...
Just by genre. Just a general feel.
Rock. And my least favorite, it's going to be painful for me to say this, hip-hop.
Really? Okay, I'll just get rid of that picture I have of you dressed up as a hip-hop rapper then. Or maybe I could use it later to piss you off. I don't know.
I don't completely go against it. It's just not the kind of style that fits, that gets my attention. But there are a few tracks that I've heard from the hip-hop area or genre that I can definitely appreciate because they do have some things that are outside of what's most commonly used for, which is all sex and drugs. That's what I heard most of the time.
Yeah. It's not pleasant.
Yeah, it's just basically hip-hop or rap is basically poetry about a lot of things that are much more depressing than what would make it out to be. But then again, rock music has lyrical meanings that are also depressing.
This is true.
Yeah, so...
How about for anime?
For anime, I don't watch anime that much. However, if there's any particular anime I love, it's basically the ones that are from Studio Ghibli or Hayao Miyazaki, like Spirited Away and Princess Mononoke.
I meant like TV show animes, but...
Oh, TV show? Boy, that's a tough one because I've hardly paid attention to it. I would say Attack on Titan, which I think almost everybody knows of at this point.
Yeah, I don't think there's a single person I know of that doesn't know this show.
My least favorite, I forgot what the name of the show was, but it was about 3 girls who were into fashion and shopping and trying to get a hold of men. Basically,
That either sounds like Bratz, Totally Spies, or something else. Alright, what about for, no least favorite animes?
I can't really figure out what my least favorite animes are, because that's as close as I can get.
Alright. How about favorite and least favorite TV shows?
My favorite TV shows, as a general, are Animaniacs, Batman the Animated Series. For live action, I enjoyed a lot of Band of Brothers, which
I
even
haven't
though
seen that.
it's a really good war series. It's basically a longer version of Saving Private Ryan.
Ah.
So there's going to be a lot of violence involved, but it's very, very like emotionally impacting. Excuse me. What other live action shows do I enjoy? Because I don't pay that much attention to them.
Right.
But that's one of them. Another is Firefly. I think it's a very underrated sci-fi series, as
I
well
haven't
as
seen Firefly either.
Definitely check that out. It's basically a Western take, or it's a sci-fi's take on Western culture with a bit of Eastern culture.
Hmm. And any least favorite TV shows?
Any least favorite TV shows? Oh my God, The Amazing World of Gumball.
Oh dear, I remember you talked about that before.
Oh, I can't stand that show. I'm sorry, Paleo, but I really hate that show. Other shows I don't like are Mega Babies, which is a generic idea about young infants who have superpowers, but in a very grotesque way that tries to be like a mixture of superhero shows with Ren and Stimpy, and it just doesn't mix very well. And last but not least, my Super Sweet 16. Jesus.
Well, of course you wouldn't like that. Nobody likes that show.
The show needs to burn in hell, because that's where it came from. It's evil. Who would want to sit through 30 minutes of a 16-year-old brat getting so much of everything in life compared to everybody else who either didn't get anything or had a job application and a kick in the nuts?
You bring up good points. I'm not even going to go near that series. I don't think it even deserves a Google, so...
Let's just say that there was a brat who had a hissy fit over a Lexus convertible because she didn't get it on the day of the party.
Oh, I've seen that on Tumblr.
Oh my God.
That friggin' kid... Okay, listen, if I was that kid's parent, I'd be like, oh, you don't want the Lexus? Okay, I'll just give it to one of your poor friends that doesn't have the money for a good car. Oh, you want it now? Well, fuck you. Making me... How much do you think that car was even worth? Like, about at least $100,000 with all that got pissed down the drain? Fucking brat. I'm sorry.
Oh, God.
So much for this review being... Wow. Interview being PG. Wow.
Oh, yes. She made the world hate her.
Favorite and least favorite video games?
Ooh. My favorite video games are mostly from the Super Nintendo console because I just love playing older games. If I were to try to like narrow everything down, there's Mega Man X, Super Metroid. I love playing the Mario Brothers series, especially the third on the NES. as well as the Super Mario All-Stars makeover. I enjoy Star Fox on the N64 and Smash Brothers on some occasion. And Gears of War, it's a pretty fun shooter game series that doesn't have as much attention like it used to. My least favorite games, it would just pretty much be a part of the bad video games category, because very, very rarely does a game ever piss me off. Like, I played Super Ghouls and Ghosts, and I actually loved that game, as hard as it is. Good God, one of those games that I just really hated playing. It was Bebe's Kids, thanks to Doug Walker. I played that game, and the controls are just flat out terrible.
Jesus.
And there was also Terminator 2, which unfortunately I used to own for the Super NES, and it's just one of those games I didn't even know back then that it was bad. The controls are just awful, and the game just doesn't tell you much of what to do. So it's not really saying much when I go to mention games like those. For the most part, I'm just like positive on so many games that I play. And I'm one of those who are also skeptical over games like Mass Effect or Ocarina of Time when occasionally the game gets a little cryptic in telling you what to do. I mean, I don't mean to say anything bad about Mass Effect or Ocarina of Time. They're great games. I just stand different from them.
Right. What are you excited for with Season 5? Like, what's some things that you want to happen that hopefully might happen?
Oof, that's a good question. Because the way Season 4 ended, it kind of ended on a bit of a note that it could be the end of the entire series and it could just be the new position of Twilight, or they take a direction in that and it could lead up to something involving world building or not. It could just be more slice of life. I really don't know. For the most part, the things I like to see the most in the show is proper characterization, narrative structure, and arc progression, and no character torments. We don't need any more character torments.
We don't need any more torture porn kind of things. That's for SpongeBob.
It is weird that I say something like that because some people would think I have high expectations, and I'm just one of those people who are very, very critical on the show, like the way I acted throughout Season 4. But there's a weird way of explaining it. So that's as much as I can say. You know, as long as they keep the characters properly intact, as long as they have good narrative structure, good lessons to teach the viewers.
What do you think keeps you going, and what helps motivate you to create more?
There have been times when I did stumble upon some moments where I just wasn't feeling as motivated working on MLP reviews. However, what did make me drive towards continuing was just looking back at older videos that were much more fun to watch. And sometimes I try to bring back that energy towards any new projects that I stumble upon, so that hopefully I can still stay intact.
Do you have any tips for fellow reviewers?
On the one hand, if you're trying to do it for popularity, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. So in general, if you're going to try to create something and get involved for popularity reasons, that's not really you showing how passionate you are on what you like to make. When I go as far as to talk about individual episodes, I try to break things down and explain things that I like, what I don't like, how does it affect my perspective, or how it affects could potentially affect other perspectives, and break down things of what I like, don't like, how it affects my perspective, how it could affect other people's perspectives, and try to explain things in a hopefully convincing way to get an understanding, and not try to go for whether or not something is good or bad because of your own personal feelings. And that's one of the big obstacles that I did face. The idea behind critiquing is to identify with, you don't purposely just look for mistakes. You look for things of what made it work, what made it didn't work, and hopefully just break down to the point where you find a middle ground of how you feel the episode worked in its own peculiar way. And get passionate about it. You know, if you want to talk about things you do like, kind of breaking down as to why you like that and how it affects your view of the episode or movie, or just in general. And wow, I'm not good at teaching things.
No, it's okay. I was like that too at some point.
Yeah. But if you really want to get your voice out there and you want to provide your opinion, don't hesitate. Just do it. If you have a microphone that's not in good quality, just stick with what you got. Because, you know, I've had some people who had low mic qualities or low quality microphones. And I can still make it work, or you can still make it work. Anybody can make a low-quality microphone work still, regardless of whatever hardware you've got. So, if you want to get involved into anything, be passionate about it. Stick with it. If you ever feel you're let down, or you feel like you're not going to be as good as others, don't compare yourself to them. Just do what you like to do. Eventually, you'll build an audience for over time.
Right. Which I think is really good advice. That's advice that I would give personally as well. So, if you weren't, Goldenfox, like the Brony reviewer Goldenfox, if there was a time where you decided you didn't want to be a Brony, where do you think you would be now?
Well, at the time I was losing interest in my movie reviewing, I probably would have latched on to another fan base or something. I don't fully know.
Well, the Doctor Who fandom is always looking for new people. Or worse, you end up with Homestuck. I don't know. Oh, no. Or heaven forbid, Littlest Pet Shop.
Oh, wow. You hated that show or something?
No, I don't. I don't hate the show. It's just I think it's the interesting opposite of My Little Pony. They aren't as hardcore as we are. But anyway, if you weren't a Brony, where do you think you would be right now?
That's a pretty difficult question. I'm not exactly sure.
No answer then? Well, okay.
I can't really answer that. I did see something about what would happen during one of my Q&As. I would have to look down from there.
But basically, you don't know.
Yeah, I really don't know. I'm sure there's something else I would have latched onto.
Right.
Just not entirely sure.
And the last question, what do you want to be remembered for? When you retire from YouTube, when you're done with reviewing, when you jump back about 5 years later and you look at what people remembered you for, what do you think you'll be remembered for?
Ooh, at the very least, the fact that I had a voice and want to say something and throw my piece on the matter, because anybody has an opinion on anything that they've talked about, and hopefully it could lead up to something to be discussed. For instance, when it came to, I don't know what would be a good example, because that's kind of what got me started in the first place when it came to reviewing in general, and not just MLP, but try to have a different viewpoint and seeing what everybody else has to say about that different viewpoint. So overall, it's just basically having a voice, which really isn't much to say. Or I don't think it is.
It's more than enough to say. Being remembered for having a voice, that's what a lot of us want to be remembered for.
Yeah.
So I think that's the best way to end it, because you've got a voice, I've got a voice. I think that's what matters most in the end.
Now all we got to do is make sure that that voice actually matters.
Since we're doing My Little Pony stuff, surely we should be taken seriously for it.
Absolutely. And even though not many people agree with my reviews, at least I say something that can help persuade other viewpoints of what others have to say. Not try to change their opinions, but just understand a little bit more from one perspective to another.
All right. Well, that about takes care of all this. Thank you so much for being here, Fox. It was an honor to have you.
Yep, it was a pleasure to be here.
So make sure to check out his channel if you haven't. Well, if you haven't subscribed to him, you should probably subscribe to him. I've worked with this guy. He is a bunch of fun. He is still one of my long-standing friends, and if you don't know him, you should know him by now. All right, so have a good night and stay awesome.
Thank you.